Welcome, Amanda, to the Biohacker Babes. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Oh, ladies, I'm really excited we're finally sitting down to talk.
Yes, us too. I know we have been connected on social media for a while now. We've
Yeah,
been following your work, and we were just saying before we hit record, it's crazy we haven't met in person because I feel like I have met you.
I know.
Um, but yeah, this has been a long time coming. I read your book a couple months ago, which we'll talk a little bit about that, and it's really exciting time because, especially with what you're doing, we're seeing this really big, I think, trend in sober living and being
Hmm.
sober curious. And it really has changed like rapidly. Like I think even like 10, 20 years ago, I mean, it's a totally different space. So I think in the episode, I would love to get into like why you think that's happening. But to kick us off, I want to hear a little bit more about your story because it sounds like maybe a decade ago, you would not have pictured you'd be doing this today.
Oh,
Or maybe
absolutely
sorry.
not.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you get to, writing a book and helping people with this? How did this all
Well,
happen?
I think there was always a part of me that knew I wanted to be an author and a teacher. I remember that from a young age. But of course, when you're a little kid, you conceptualize that very differently. Like I thought I would be writing like the Babysitter's Club, like my version or something. And that, of course, expanded over time as I started to become more and more conscious of where I was going in life. And actually, it was my 28th birthday. I got this bodywork treatment with this old sage Native American man, and he really turned me on to this new age spirituality, personal growth, health movement that I was kind of just blissfully unaware of. I grew up in the Midwest, so I've always been like a very, we've had a specific eating style, a specific lifestyle, a specific everything. And he turned me on to not only eating and treating my body in a different way that was a little more holistic and natural, but also to kind of some practices that were, of a spiritual nature. I grew up in the Bible Belt, were a little more open minded. And so I set out on this path of really trying to discover myself and treat my body and my mind and my spirit more gently. And I was on that path for about 3 years, and I was discovering new age teachers and movements and doing all of these different health and wellness things. And you name it, I was like checking the box of, strength training, yoga, meditation, journaling, going to retreats, doing My Fitness Pal was kind of like the hot thing at that time to like kind of track what you were eating and taking in. And I was really trying to learn how to treat my body better. And that was happening Monday through Friday pretty diligently, but I was in my late 20s. And so Friday at 5 o'clock, it was work hard, play hard time. And I went out with my friends and just kind of cut loose through the weekend. But this wasn't, as anything that was unusual for a woman of my age. I'm sure that both of you are maybe doing the same thing in
Yeah.
your mid to late 20s and just kind of going out and cutting loose on the weekends, right?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
totally normal. Happy
Hmm.
hour and
Yeah.
then brunching and
I
Yeah.
don't know if I was ever there. Maybe Renee more so, but gosh, I know so many people, and I know adults, even adults that are older than me, that still do that, where they
Yeah.
work so hard. It's like, how could you even imagine not drinking on the weekend? You have to cut loose on the weekend to make up for the week. I'm like, but are you that stressed? Do you hate what you do
Yes.
so much? Like, I'm
Yeah.
curious about it. Very curious.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing is I think I did. And I was that stressed and I was that misaligned with what I was doing, even though I had a great job and there were things about it that were wonderful. I was, a young woman trying to prove myself. So I was overworking myself. And then I just felt entitled and into this party lifestyle on the weekend. And not only that, like I didn't have the emotional tools to deal with stress and discomfort and feeling out of alignment with my life. And so I just kind of wanted to shut up those voices that told me anything was off track because I had worked so hard to get a college degree and to get where I was. Like, I desperately didn't want to face the fact that maybe I picked the wrong trail to start walking on. And I did that truly for 3 years, doing the kind of work hard, play hard thing, or I would call it like mindful, mindless lifestyle that I was this like healthy yoga girl during the week. And then the weekend, I was just kind of cutting loose and going crazy. And somewhere along the line or along the way, I ended up picking up and moving to Austin, Texas, which is, of course is a really interesting town. Y'all have been here several times. That there's so much like wellness and fitness and positive lifestyle, but on the other end, it's also a blossoming tech town where there's a lot of young individuals with a lot of money and a lot of spare time. So there is a huge party scene here.
And the
And even
bachelor
though
parties and the
yes,
bachelor
all the
bachelorette
time.
parties. It's like the
Yeah.
number one city.
Yes, exactly. And the weather's great. So there's plenty of, time to be outside during the year, which usually just means, it could mean more recreation, but for a lot of people, it means more drinking and more patio time. And even though I aspired to be over in the wellness group of people, I ended up getting sucked into the kind of, high achiever party people. And I did that gig for about a year living here before I just said to myself, like, Amanda, you have bigger things to do in this world. You cannot keep doing things this way. You are on a merry-go-round that is never going to end. Like, you have to choose to get off the ride. So, begrudgingly, because I wanted to just figure out how to moderate my drinking, and that just never seemed to work, even though I was only a social drinker. But so begrudgingly in January 2017, I decided I was going to do dry January, which is this, trend that was just kind of coming of time at that point. And I started off with 30 days alcohol free. And somewhere during that 30 days, I realized, oof, this is not representative of what it would really be like. I think I need to go a little longer. And so I committed to going 90 days because I really heard that that was what you needed to do in order to start a new habit. And by the time I made it to 90 days, I decided I'm going to go 6 months. Then I went 9 months. Then I went a year. And before I knew it, I felt so good and had started to really amass the tools that I needed to work through my emotions and do all of the other things that alcohol had kind of been like a pacifier for, that I realized I don't want to drink anymore. And so that's kind of how I started on my own journey. But that developed, of course, into me being a mentor for other women who want to do the same thing and writing a book and all the things we'll talk about today.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I
Wow.
love that you started with the small milestones because I think that would be really daunting to just wake up one day and go like, I'm never going to drink again. But
Yeah.
probably if you
Yeah.
compared people that committed to that big milestone versus the small one, I'm sure the ones on the small end are going to do better. I would imagine.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, in the recovery space, which is still kind of the sacred space of the sober movement, it's one day at a time. And I think that there's a fine line between, for someone who is having a casual social relationship with alcohol and is also really high achieving, really capable, really goal oriented, that one day at a time can be a throwaway goal. And so it's like, well, I guess I'll just start over again tomorrow. But that
Mm.
other end of the
Mm.
spectrum with forever is very daunting because then you start future tripping and thinking, well, what will I do when I go to this conference or I go on a cruise or I get married or I go to a wedding? You start to kind of catastrophize what could be. But you're exactly right, Lauren. Doing those little 30, 60, 90-day benchmarks and then stretching out from there is really the most productive thing if you want to change a habit because everything has a line of sight and then you can reevaluate versus one day at a time or forever, which kind of just is either too little or too much.
Ooh, time to
Yeah.
evaluate. That's so
Mhm.
key.
Hmm.
I have one of my best friends actually did that dry January,
Mhm.
exact same track. It was like, I'm
Yep.
going to give it up for 30 days. And then I was like, oh, a little bit more. Ooh, a little bit more. It's been, I think, over 2 years and he hasn't
Yes.
had a drink. And that's just his lifestyle now. But that
Mhm.
certainly
Wow.
wasn't the original intention by any means.
No.
And I love what's similar about both of you is neither of you really had a problem, neither hit rock bottom, but you both sort of got this message that there is something bigger, a bigger purpose to life,
Mhm.
which I think is such a gift. But what if you're not getting that higher
Yeah.
calling?
Yeah.
What do you tell people there?
I think it is unusual. I think most people who I've talked to do have some little whisper inside that, mine literally said, Amanda, I see you doing big things in this life and I can't see you doing them with alcohol in the picture. But everyone who I've talked to has had kind of some version of this isn't it. Like, isn't there more to life than what I'm experiencing? And it's so hard though, because that's so obscure. Like you're going into this huge commitment that you're going against the social norm and you have this like kind of harebrained idea that your life might be somehow better if you stop doing this one socially acceptable thing that is also a super important crush in your life. Like, I just want to applaud anyone who's even had like the whisper of a nudge and followed it because that's really brave to do when you don't have any empirical proof that this is going to change anything. And also because the change can take a little while to set in. Like, it's really brave of you to explore that in a world that would say, oh, it's okay. Just have a few, just try moderation, just cut back a little. Like, for you to commit to removing something from your life just from a kind of an intuitive place is a really badass move.
Mm.
Totally.
Yeah.
Brave and badass,
Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think more people are having that. Like I'm having this conversation with friends that because like I've done like I did dry January, dry April, dry June. I've been doing like
Uh-huh.
dry months. Um but so I have conversations with friends, and I'm amazed how many people are like, I've thought about maybe giving up alcohol. And I'm like, I never thought you would say that. Like, that's amazing. So more people are definitely aware of that. But I'm curious, like you said, it's such a social norm to drink. Like, I think about like James Swanwick. I heard him say once, you think of going to a football game, you think of drinking beer, and then New Year's Eve, you think of drinking champagne, and toasting at a wedding is champagne. Like, this stuff is ingrained in our culture. And I think a lot of it maybe is backed by the, $1 trillion alcohol industry or whatever. But with the push from a lot of Gen Zers saying, we don't really want to go to the bar on Friday night, we don't really want to buy alcohol. Do you think that that is going to come into like the new social norm as we like the populations kind of
I
grow?
think so. I think it'll take a long time, but my colleague Holly Whitaker, she wrote a book called Quit Like a Woman, and in it she talks about how alcohol is having a cigarette moment, and she really dismantles the movement of tobacco and how it was marketed and the brilliance behind that, and then how it had its like basically its rise and fall. And the rise and fall of alcohol is very similar. So I think that there will be a moment where the new generation has decided like, ew, we're not doing that thing anymore. People will still do it. Like there are still millennials and younger people who smoke cigarettes, like despite what we know about that. And I think it will be the same
Hard to
with
believe.
alcohol, but it will become less and less. And most I sometimes I have been actually, I was back home recently and there was a restaurant or a little bar there that I was like, oh, this is a smoking bar. What's happening? Like I haven't been in a place for so long where you could smoke inside that it was almost like this, wait, is this still legal? Does this still exist? And that's a really good feeling. I think that that will happen in some ways with alcohol where it will just become like, oh, maybe alcohol is still available, but mocktails and alcohol-free alternatives are so prevalent that people will be fine with that as an option. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that, yeah, it's some of the next generation coming along and saying like, that's boring and not creative. We don't want to do that. But also, our generation and older saying, this isn't good for us anymore. We need a different alternative. This is not the path we want to keep going down. And it's a little bit of a both and for me.
Sure. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, so many
That's interesting.
shades and variables. But with the mocktails, I'm definitely seeing a movement there. More and more bars are having mocktail menus,
Mhm.
and the mocktails are not just the
Fruit juice.
sugary, fruity stuff. They're actually getting more creative. So I've seen a shift in that. I'm curious though, like, do we need to decide based on our personality and relationship to alcohol if that could be a stepping stone, like still going to a bar and doing mocktails, or does it depend on who you are, really what the next step is?
Yeah, I think it really does because you have to ask yourself, what are you trying to achieve or avoid when you drink alcohol? And it's a really big question that most people don't realize until they take a step back. And, for most people, what they're trying to achieve is a feeling that they feel is socially acceptable. They want to be more fun, more sexy, more relaxed, more interesting, whatever that is that you're trying to go toward. Or there's this thing that you're trying to avoid. So I'm trying to be less anxious, less, angry, less stressed, or this, this thing that is we're broken because we have this personality trait. And if you can hone in on kind of which one of those you are tending or trending toward, then you already have some really important data. And you also need to know, am I more of a social or emotional drinker, or am I the perfect storm of both? Because if you're a social drinker, thrusting yourself into a social environment without your social lubricant can be kind of disarming. Like you have to be pretty stubborn to be able to go into that and not feel triggered or not feel like you're just going to throw in the towel and say screw it. And a mocktail's not going to help you because if you have any level of social anxiety, you are going to feel like just really, disoriented in a space like that. Now, if you're more of an emotional drinker, someone who kind of drinks at home or under stressful situations, it might be easier for you to go into a social environment and stand your ground. So you just kind of have to know who you are and what your particular flavor of needing a drink is before you figure out what approach you're going to take to protecting your own, the commitment you've made to yourself, basically. So do I need to take a step back from social functions? Am I okay going to social functions and just drinking non-alcoholic things? I think it's different for everyone. Unfortunately, I know that's not a great answer because you have to just know
Yeah.
yourself and know what you can handle. And also sometimes you have to go into those situations because the reality is you don't want to become a social recluse just because you quit drinking. At some point, you're going to have to figure out how to go into society. But I would just say if that is something early on that you're not feeling comfortable with, then taking a step back until you get your bearings about you is important. But that ultimately you can figure out what works for you and figure out a way to, go out and enjoy a nice non-alcoholic drink and have a great time, and then go home whenever you feel the party's over for you. And I think that's really great too. I think it just requires us to be a little more discerning of our own needs and desires and our own personality and our own sensitivities. And I know for me as a drinker, I had no idea. I would go to these crazy bars that were full of loud music and super crowded. And now I think of that and I'm like, no wonder I had to drink to get through that. That
Yeah.
actually is not
Yeah.
fun to me,
That sounds
Right, right.
miserable.
Yeah, I'm
Right. And
trying to
I've
be
heard
in
you
a
say, like, if you need a drink to make it fun, it's not fun.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
wish
think
I
no.
like
would have
that's
known that. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, yeah, that's so funny. I think of that quote like all the time when I'm like out. I mean, I live in Vegas, so it's like, I
Hmm.
mean, it's everywhere out here.
Yeah.
And I just like I watch people and I'm like, oh my God, like, is this even fun? Like, what are people
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm curious, in like in the health world, this is so interesting because some people, are on one end of the spectrum where it's like it's literally poison. Like, why would you poison your body when you're spending all this money on like peptides and NADIVs and all these things, and then you're like dumping poison down your throat? But then there's the other end of the spectrum that's like, hey, the blue zones drink alcohol. There's no problem with having some alcohol. There's dry farm wines, or even someone like Ben Greenfield, he microdoses alcohol. I think he has like half a drink every day.
Hmm.
So I don't know, what are your thoughts on like the health community, and are we getting this wrong or what's happening?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back, and I saved that Ben Greenfield video where he announced that because I know I had a strong opinion on it at the time. And I think it was, really if you're super like if you're literally drinking less than a tablespoon, I think that's the amount that from my last research deep dive that your body doesn't have to go into processing mode. But for me, it's like why are you doing like what is the point for you to drink if you're really committed to these other pieces of your health. And so for me, it started to become just super counterintuitive because all of the negatives of alcohol in your system and the ways in which your body has to like really fight it in order to flush it from your system started to just become super counterintuitive for me. So there definitely is it is kind of ironic. Like there's so many health spaces that are teaching you how to moderate or like what supplements to take to negate the effects of alcohol. But from all of the studies that I've read, what happens when alcohol gets in your system over a certain amount is that your body identifies, oh, here is a toxin that's in our body. So it has to shift all of the essential functions to flushing out the toxin. So that means if you brought in these supplements, you brought in, I don't care if you're eating like super, super healthy, your body isn't able to process whatever is brought into it when it's fighting off alcohol. And so for me, even in a small amount, it doesn't make sense to put that into my body because I know that now I'm just going to have to shift my body's priority and focus away from utilizing any of the good things to actually processing out the bad thing. And not that I want to be clear, alcohol is not like morally bad, wrong, or evil. Like you're not bad if you drink it, but it really just if you are someone who's on a health journey and wanting to optimize your health, it's not doing you any favors. And so I think that there's this really interesting thing going on in the health space where a lot of people are really tightly holding on to it and trying to find ways to moderate and trying to find ways to integrate it. But the bigger question we need to ask is how is it serving you? And can you find a different source for that pleasure that you're bringing in with this thing that really is counterproductive to your health?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It also just feels like a know thyself situation as
Mm-hmm.
well. Cause Renee and I, maybe you know this person, we know
Yeah.
someone in the health space that literally has a company that helps him detox so that he can keep doing his drinking and partying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's the MO. So he's working backwards. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, most of us are trying to be healthier. Um, just for me personally, like I really don't enjoy alcohol that much, but it sounds crazy when I tell people, but I really like the taste. I
Mm-hmm.
really like a cocktail.
Yeah.
I like to taste a wine. I'm usually if I'm gonna drink, a one drink person. So for me, I'm not really motivated to cut it out completely. But then other spectrum, I see people that completely abuse it, but they're like so high functioning. So I'm just like, I just to go back to your point, it's like figure out why are
Mm-hmm.
you doing this? Because I see those high functioning people. I'm like, maybe there's some other discoveries we can do. So that leads me to my next question, which was about like AA and those
Hmm.
beginnings. Because I think the founder, or AA really was created around spiritual principles.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
think the founder actually went through some psychedelic experiences. So I'm curious about
Hmm.
your understanding of what kind of discoveries emotionally we can do under the surface, maybe as another sport.
Yes, I think that, I would have to research that background of AA because I can't corroborate that, but I do believe I've heard the same thing. And I think that AA is a really great resource for who it works for. But in terms of emotional support and reprogramming, like I'm a fan of psychedelic use to support that in a very mindful way. I think that there is a new thing that's happening where a lot of people are journey jumping and going from one psychedelic thing to the other without
Totally.
properly integrating. And that's a whole nother thing. But I think that, in terms of learning to have the emotional capacity, that there are things like microdosing mushrooms or other substances that can really help with your neuroplasticity and help you to rewire some of the places of your brain that haven't like quite developed in the way that you would hope that they would. And so I think if used mindfully and in a productive way, that is a great resource. But then there are also so many other functional holistic things like breath work, meditation, even just journaling that can really help you start to process your emotions and feel good in your body and also experience these senses of euphoria that alcohol or psychedelics can bring on. And I think that for me, I like to also test the natural limits of what I'm capable of. And so those types of resources like breath work, and even I'm not a big like cold plunge person, but those are resources that can really test your limits and help you with your own resilience. And I think that tapping into those are so they're just things you can do. It's such a cool option that we really weren't presented with, years and years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
Yeah.
fact that our
Yeah.
brains can produce DMT, we don't need
Yes,
plants to do that. But that's like a big
totally.
jump for some people, especially if they're
Hmm.
coming from drinking all the time to not to starting breath work. Like that's a scary little pool that you got to jump in,
Hmm.
perhaps.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think that my preference would be to have someone not replace alcohol with another substance in order to try and, wean themselves off. I really would want them to know that
Yeah.
that everyone has the capacity, void of, there's definitely some psychological things that you could have going on that you want to, be mindful of or get the help and support of a health practitioner. But I think that everyone has truly the capacity to deal with anything that life throws at them. You just don't have the tools or haven't been set up for success in that way, because how many of our parents taught us how to process and hold space for emotions when we were kids? Like that just wasn't, especially our generation.
Mm-mm.
You were in a very luckily familial situation if you had someone ask you, what it meant to be sad and where did your sadness come from? Where do you feel it in your body? Like I didn't know, that didn't happen to anyone who I knew growing up. So I think that just relearning, understanding, and feeling emotions is such a prime skill that we can do, but it's not sexy and it's not easy and it's not fast. And that's the hard part, is that we are in a generation now of quick fixes, and some
Yeah.
things you have to like go back and do the slow way, the old fashioned way. And that's hard for some people to understand and grasp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Definitely. It takes some work and it's new. Like you said, it's new for a lot of us. And funny story, I'm watching this new show called Stick,
Me
with
too.
Owen.
I love
You
it.
are
Oh my God,
Wait,
I'm
okay.
what?
obsessed with
What is
it.
it?
Watch it. Laura,
Oh
get
my
on
God,
the
it's so
stick
good.
train. It's
Owen
so good.
Wilson is like an old golf pro, but
Yep.
anyways, there's a
Oh, yeah.
scene. This I promise that this won't ruin anything in the show for anyone that hasn't seen it. But there is a Gen Zer and a baby boomer, and they're arguing, and
Hmm.
she's just like spilling her guts, and he's like, "Geez, like what is happening?" And she's like, "I just need you to hold space and listen to me. I'm really upset." And he's like, "What is with your generation and holding space for everyone?" Like. And she's like, "All
Yep.
right, boomer." And anyways, it was like a fun like interplay of the two generations.
Yeah.
So
And some people
yeah.
just can't even fathom like what it's like to process emotions. And I think that we're in a really cool space where therapy has become something that's not shameful anymore. And there are so many, psychedelic or natural approaches, whatever and different supplements and things that you can take to even yourself out. And that just wasn't an option really 5, 10 years ago. I think that we're really in a transformative time where we can really care for ourselves differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I'm curious about the three stages of a sober lifestyle. So I think we start with sober curious. I am curious what comes
Mhm.
after that and how we kind of navigate through.
Yeah, my colleague Ruby Warrington, she wrote a book and kind of coined the phrase sober curious. And I think a lot of people understand that now. And
Mhm.
it was kind of a play off of the bi curious kind of identification where you're exploring bisexuality and you really are kind of fluid in your sexuality. And so it's more of having this like really fluid relationship with alcohol and being curious about it and being curious about sobriety and what does that look like. And I'm not going to identify as sober, but I'm going to check it out a little bit. I'm going to dabble. I'm going to dip my toe in the pond. And I think that that movement is so cool because it created a space for open conversation where you could explore sobriety outside of the realms of addiction, which is just really just opens up the conversation for so many people. But then for me, I think that there's a step after that when you become sober serious and you go from dabbling, maybe you've done 21-day challenges or dry January or whatever, you've tried moderation, to you realizing, kind of like your friend did, Lauren, that this isn't serving me and I have to give this lifestyle an honest try so that I know what I'm missing out on. And going into that place where you're really committing to, I'm going to figure out what it's like to live alcohol free. And I'm really going to give this a serious shot. And I think that right now, that's where a lot of people are getting to, that they've tried the sober curious thing. They've done the dry January, they've done the sober October, and now they're ready to really commit to doing this a little more long term and seeing what results they could get. And that has turned into a lot of people just living genuinely alcohol free. They started to identify as, I don't drink anymore. I'm a non drinker. This is my lifestyle. Alcohol is insignificant. It's not necessary. I don't need it or require it to get on in life. I'm just free from it. And I think those two like new stages as we emerge are really cool to see those people go from sober curious to sober serious to finally identifying really proudly as being alcohol free.
Hmm. Can you
Yeah.
share like maybe like a story or two about a client of yours of like something they discovered once they
Mm-hmm.
were sober serious?
Yeah, I can give you a lot of ones, but one that's coming to mind, I'll give you actually two, one from a little more metaphysical woo-woo level and one from a more practical level. So my client Stacy has always been kind of like a exuberant, wild personality, and she chose a career path for her that was really practical, that allowed her to help people. And when she stopped drinking, she realized that she has like this very intuitive gift and maybe even like on the psychic power level where she's just able to tap into this sixth sense that she has always been blocking. And so as a drinker, she was kind of using alcohol as a way to run from this thing that she was already a little weird and wacky and out there and eccentric, and hide from this thing that made her even more so. But it's also the thing that makes her so authentic and beautiful. And that is just her differentiating factor in life. And there's so many people out there who have this like uniqueness that they're dampening down with alcohol. And I think that watching her come into her own personality and be her own authentic self and show up and shine bright and allow herself to be eccentric, from the standard of a lot of other people has been really cool, just to see her let that come out versus trying to dampen it down and fit in and be like everyone else. And so often I think that we, especially as women, we're taught to be a little more demure and not take up space. And having this ability, and of course that does that mean that everyone's gonna like unlock a psychic power once you stop drinking alcohol? No, but maybe. But I think that's a really interesting like energetic take on it. And then I also have my client, my past client Bree, who she had this really, and I think a lot of people will really relate to this, especially as women, this really high powered career where she had climbed the corporate ladder. She had really busted through a lot of blocks, and she was an attorney, and she'd ended up starting her own really successful law firm. She was kicking ass and taking names, but she was overwhelmed, burnt out, feeling out of touch, feeling overworked and underappreciated with too many responsibilities. And she finally, once she stopped drinking alcohol, she realized, wow, I'm really good at this. I built this life that is in my zone of excellence. Like I'm an excellent attorney and I built an excellent business, but this is not my zone of genius. And I'm tired of being burnt out, and I'm tired of like spinning my wheels and hustling. And alcohol was basically just keeping the wheels on the bus. And now that I don't have that to kind of put me in a fog, I don't want to be in this career anymore. Even after all of the ladders I've climbed to get here and the hurdles I've jumped over, I don't want to do it. And it empowered her and gave her the clarity, first of all, and the courage to jump off of that ladder and start her own business. And whether that, that also is an extreme example. Like not everyone is going to realize they're fully out of alignment with their career. But I think a lot of people can relate to realizing once you're no longer in a haze that some things in your life or are maybe even just overcommitments that you've overburdened yourself trying to pick up the pieces for everyone else. And it's time to, at the very least, set some boundaries so that you are not burnt out, so that you're not overwhelmed, so that you're not running on fumes all of the time. And whether that looks like burning it all to the ground and starting over or just setting some boundaries and making some pivots. I think that's the really beautiful thing that I've seen when people go from the curious to serious phase is they start to get some aha moments about what they've been blissfully unaware of, but still suffering from in their lives. And it gives them the bandwidth to actually take that on and stop avoiding it.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So eye-opening and
Yeah.
pretty sad that our culture or country, or I mean, it's around the world, alcohol,
It's everywhere for
but
sure.
that it's
Especially
so
here.
legal and that could be really dampening what makes us all so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, when I think about my really high functioning friends that are alcoholics, I'm like, you're so high functioning, so smart. What else could you possibly contribute to this
Yes.
world? It's almost like, they like want it to be a little dampened so that we're not stepping into our power. It's a little scary. And I see that too when clients that I work with microdosing. It's like you really start to get super clear on why you're here and what you should be doing. It's such a beautiful awakening, I think.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, you know, I kind of describe it as, you know, my goal is to help people reach their potential and to take anything away that isn't contributing to that. And so often like your potential is up here on a mountain peak, but alcohol is keeping you on a plateau. And you like even like drew out that line, Lauren, when you were describing it to me. And that's how I felt in my life. Like I was doing good, but I was on this plateau that I was never going to get off of. And that feels boring and unfulfilling. And I wanted to climb up the mountain, but I couldn't do it drunk or hungover. And so the next thing was just to get rid of alcohol so that I could at least give myself a fighting chance.
Yeah. Incredible. Again, brave, so brave and badass.
Yeah. Yeah. Amanda, can you share a little bit about your thoughts on like the impact on social relationships? Because I've heard you say this and I have definitely noticed this, like going out with friends and not drinking, the conversations are more exciting, more fun, they're deeper versus when we're out drinking, they're just like, I don't know, they're just so mundane. Like
They're
that's for me.
very surface
Yeah,
level, super
surface level.
superficial.
And I don't know, maybe it's my brain, or maybe other people experience this too, but even like one drink, the next day, I'm like, what were we really talking about? Like it's like it feels a little fuzzy, and then you're like, well, that was stupid. Versus
Yeah.
when you're sober, you remember everything you talked about. So
It is so interesting because I thought that maybe I am a little socially awkward and I'll just embrace that, but I thought that I needed alcohol to like get along in social situations. And I realized that all of the conversations I was having as a drinker, first of all, they're in these loud, rowdy environments. So you're having to like scream over everything and like lean into here. And so you can't even in most situations have a productive conversation. And then the nature of alcohol is your conversations are starting to become a little more, did you watch that episode of Housewives or whatever it is that is just a little more base level and not really deep. Or if you do get into a deep conversation, it is once you've had kind of that tipping point level of alcohol and you don't remember it. And on the other end of the spectrum, I've realized that what if those friends who I made, some of them I still keep in touch with, but what if those were just my friends for a season? And those people aren't the people who I was meant to build deep relationships with because the individuals, the women and men who are my friends now, like we all get together and we can talk forever about really interesting, complex things. And, we all share a friend in common, my friend Molly Eastman, who is a sleep expert. And when we get together, we are cutting up. Like we are so funny and having so much fun and we are not drinking at all. And we're in bed early and everything's great. And we had more productive connection in an hour's time than I would have had with my old social circles in 5 hours time. And it's just so interesting that you can have a deeper connection faster with I mean, it's not interesting. It's obvious to me now, but before it wasn't. Like I'm having these much deeper connections and conversations with individuals without alcohol because we're in our full consciousness and because we have things in common that aren't just we like to drink and party. And I think that that's a really humbling realization to have, but it's also a really powerful one because we crave deep connection, and having that social connection where you can really be authentic and deeply connected to someone is really special.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so
Yeah.
much. And yes, we
Oh,
share that with Molly too. It's like, who needs
Yes.
alcohol or anything? It's just like when you're with
yeah.
your people, and I've noticed that too. Like sometimes if I'm at a bar and I have a drink, I'm like, oh, now I can socialize with them. But like, why? It's
Why
kind of
now?
falsifying. Like, why? That's creating this foolish relationship that is probably not going to be lasting, and we're not ever going to have deep relationships. So why even enter into that sort of fake environment in a way?
Totally. Totally. I feel that now. I didn't know that in my 20s and early 30s, but I know it now. And it's such, I mean, such I have the friendships now that I longed for in my 20s and 30s, where I feel deeply supported and I feel deeply seen and I feel connected. And one of the most beautiful experiences I'm when I published my book a couple of years ago, one of my girlfriends said, I want to throw you a shower to like acknowledge this, because I'm such tired of this bullshit of people only having showers for weddings and babies. And you just birthed a book. I want to throw you the shower. So we had this really intimate experience. I still invited 20 of what I consider my closest friends. And each of them were so dialed in, so present, so just genuine and loving and ready to pour love into me. I had just never experienced something like it. And it was almost an out of body moment of, wow, this is what real friendship looks like. It's women who see you and support you and want to show up for you. And there's no competition and there's no, grab for anything or attention. Like everyone was solely focused on how can I support and honor this person, me, in that time. And I thought it was so just such a rite of passage and a show of this is what you've built over the past 8 years being alcohol free, are these real genuine friendships versus I look back at my last drinking birthday, which was my 30th birthday, which was a catastrophe. People showed up and were very selfish and were very, it was a catastrophe. We don't need to go into it, but when you juxtapose those two positions of people intending to show up to celebrate me and it only really happened in one instance and also very powerfully, it's really cool to see that transformation and the difference between those two events.
Wow.
Such a
That's so
Carrie
cool.
Bradshaw moment.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
Carrie
Shower.
Bradshaw.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's so much work. My God, you deserve that so much.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
And your Audible is great.
Yay, I'm glad you
We've
listened to
heard,
it.
oh yeah, it's so, I think I bought your book and then I also bought it on Audible because I saw that you narrated it. And that just makes the
That's the
world of,
best.
oh my gosh, it's so good. I've heard it takes a lot of time. So thank you for doing that. But I think it makes a
Yes.
big difference.
Oh, totally. That
Yeah.
was my favorite part of the entire book experience because it really brought everything full circle. And I got to experience this thing that I had put together over years and years of time. And I love doing it. So it always makes me happy when people have listened to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Amanda, a big question that I hear from people a lot, especially clients, is, but what about vacation?
Uh-huh. That's what most of my clients are asking me right now because
Right? It's
we're
like
in the
you're
beginning
home
of
and
July.
yeah, you're rolling
Yeah.
into summer season vacations. Like, how do you shift that mindset for people?
hmm Well, I think that the big piece is how can you experience the thing that you're going to go do through the eyes of joy? And I'll be candid. There are a couple of experiences that are most difficult. A cruise, right? Because you're locked on a ship with people and
Yeah.
alcohol is being pushed down your throat. An all inclusive can also be very similar. Or if you're going to a place where it's like, it's all, so you're going to Italy or somewhere where everything tends to be very culturally centered around alcohol and drinking, or like Napa or somewhere like that. So there are situations that are more difficult than others. But I want to say, just on a generalized level, that it's all about how can you allow yourself to be kind of like wholesomely present for everything that's available to you on a vacation. And I know that every time I've gone into it with the intention of kind of like looking at the place that I'm vacationing with childlike wonder, that I experience, I'm over here like hugging a tree and crying. And that's not something I would have done 10 years ago. It's just this ability to be present in nature or to have fun and an experience at a water park or wherever you're going with your family, and actually just allow yourself to experience bliss and joy and awe and wonder and be happy and excited without having to enhance the moment. And I think that we get this perception that we either need it to enhance the occasion or we need it to relax. And if you allow yourself just to test the waters and see what is it like to enjoy something just without reserve, actually like fully let yourself go. And I actually think that that's the hardest part, especially for women, is fully letting themselves go and feeling joy and feeling excitement, because it's also kind of disorienting to be like really happy in doing something. Sometimes for women, it's really hard to experience that emotion. And I really encourage anyone who's going at that the first time this year is to say, you know what, this might be the only time I get to fully experience a vacation, because I might make another decision 6 months down the road that I want to go back to alcohol. So why don't I not just give myself this one time experience of being present, of experiencing joy, of being all in on this vacation without alcohol, knowing that the next time of my next vacation, if I choose to drink, I can, but this is my opportunity to have this experience and I want to go at it full force. And I think that for me is the biggest tip, is just to give yourself, even if this is the only vacation you ever do sober, at least you'll say you've done it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
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 And good point about like the cruises, all inclusive. Funny, actually, I was out to dinner with my husband last night and we started brainstorming his 40th birthday. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to take a trip. And we're like throwing out cruises, all inclusives, and talking about it. And I'm like, but both of us aren't really drinking much anymore. Would that even be fun? And so we
Yeah.
started talking about like maybe we go to a national park instead, or like,
Mm-hmm.
different conversation where it used to be like, yeah, why not go on a cruise? But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
honestly, being healthy too, like those, it's not always the best food or anything in those situations. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
A lot
no.
of fasting.
But I think you're lucky, Renee, that you and Ryan have kind of been on this journey together and you're evolving in that way together. But Amanda, what would you say for couples that are really divergent in that way and not
Mm.
on the same path or
Oh,
Ooh.
hoping to be
that's
on
an
this
important one. And I'm sure you see that a lot with the people you work with too, that someone goes down like a health
all
craze
the
and the other
time?
partner is still like, oh, I'm not sure that's for me, or feels very confronted by it. And the thing that you have to remember is everyone is on their own journey and you cannot force or persuade anyone to change their ways. So alcohol is an interesting one because of course people can have very unhealthy relationships with it. And for me, unless your partner is being destructive or trying to derail your plan because it makes them viscerally uncomfortable that you're not drinking, let them do their own thing. Like, let them just see and experience what it's like for you to be alcohol free, and let your actions speak for themselves and let your experience and your transformation speak for itself. And what I've seen in most cases is that if you have a good relationship, it just gets even better. And if you have a relationship that's challenging, that you actually create a runway for it to get even better. And that so often that the thing that, about alcohol is a lot of people just drink because the other person is drinking or because they have a
Mm-hmm.
buddy. And once
Mm-hmm.
you slow down, a lot of times that means your partner will slow down too, because it doesn't feel as productive, or productive, I don't know is the right word. It just doesn't feel as congruent for them to be drinking alone. And I think that is what most people will see over the long term, is that the other partner slows down just a little bit as well. And while they might not ever cut back completely or stop drinking completely, that usually their habits change a little bit and lessen over time. Now it's not an every time that happens, but if you just be patient and kind of let it play itself out, I think that's the best case scenario. And just let your experience speak for itself, because if they see you having fun and feeling better and being healthy, a lot of times they want to come along for the ride, because it just feels it you're showing them something really cool that they never thought could happen. And that would be my preference. But there are times when you do have to have tough conversations with a partner, maybe whose habit isn't is being detrimental to your relationship or something. And that's a whole different conversation. It's a much more rare situation.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know, Lauren, you said Ryan and I were kind of on the same page, but I think I kind of was pushing and then he kind of followed close after. But also
Yeah.
what was helpful is the Aura ring.
Mhm.
because my
This is what
husband,
happens when you drink. Yeah, that's very confronting.
yeah, I mean, my husband swore alcohol did not impact his sleep until he got an Oura ring 5 years ago. And I
Yeah,
was like,
no.
oh my gosh, I had no
the
idea.
the data is pretty astounding. And Aura
Yeah.
wasn't a thing when I stopped drinking, and I wish I had that data because now I'm like looking at how I sleep like a baby most nights, and I wish I did have the opposite information available to me. But you all have seen, I'm sure, and Aura has lots of great data where you can tell significantly. You don't even have to log it. They can tell, oh, that person probably had a drink today, if even just one. And I think that it's
Yeah.
the data we have available to us now is pretty profound and persuasive in its own right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's still
Yeah.
some people that don't care, or they're
Yeah.
like, I see it, but I'm still gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah,
And
and
I guess
that's
that's
okay. We're
okay.
Yeah. And
all
it's
on our own
okay.
journey. I think that this
Yeah.
message really is for, and I probably should have said this up front, that it's for someone who you're wondering what life would be like without alcohol. I'm not here to shame anyone or tell you alcohol is bad, wrong, or evil. But if you are kind of slightly curious about being serious, then you just need a nudge over the edge. You need someone to remind you, oh, this isn't really productive. There is another way. It isn't doom, gloom, and destruction. If you decide to stop drinking, like you'll still have a vibrant social life and things will get so much better. And I think that's what a lot of people need to hear right now is that, hey, this is a game changer. It can really move the needle in a lot of ways. And if you care about that, then great. This discussion is for you.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. We love
Mhm.
Well
answering
said.
that question. Thank you. So, for anyone that is currently drinking and maybe now they're curious about being sober curious, or if they're sober curious and curious about being sober serious, what are some of the actionables we can take? Or if that's in your book, we don't want to give it away, but
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
what
no,
are
you can.
some
I'm happy to give
like
away details from my
journaling
book
or grab a
too.
buddy? Like, how do we get from A to B in these situations?
Yeah, first of all, and we can talk about this at the end as well, but I'll give you all a link to a 21-day challenge that I have that corresponds with the book content that helps you ask some of those questions. And usually I ask people to buy the book, but if you use the coupon code BABES to go and get it, I'll just let anyone have it for free. And
Oh
it'll help
yeah,
you kind of
thank
go
you.
into some of
you.
those inquisitive questions. So if you go to amandakuda.com/challenge and use that coupon code, just play around, just ask yourself and get even more curious about what this could mean for you. But then my next suggestion would be you need to take an honest break. And that looks like more than 30 days. To me, it looks like a minimum of about 90 to 100 before you really know what it's going to feel like and be like. And even for some people, that's not enough. Their system still needs time to recalibrate. But if you can give yourself a 90 to 100-day runway to be completely non negotiable alcohol free, you're going to really set yourself up for at least having a knowledge base of what it might be like and what could change longer term if you decide to keep going.
Mm. Relates so much to, nutrition changes, or people don't
Mhm.
change long enough and they're like, oh, it didn't work for me. It's like, well,
Yes,
it didn't do it long
exactly.
enough.
Oh my gosh,
Period.
Yeah.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That
feel
makes
like a
sense.
lot of people would get to 90 days and keep going.
Yes, because you're just starting to be on the cusp of feeling better and um tapping back into creativity and intuition and feeling good in your body. And again, there's no magic, Lauren, just like you with nutrition, there's no magic pill of this diet for every single person will work in 48 days. It's, you have to be mindful everyone's body is different, but that's about the time frame where you start to see some change. And most people get there and they're like, well, I don't feel perfect, but I feel better enough to keep trying. And if we can just keep stretching from there and go to longer and longer stretch goals, you'll have more and more data. And data, as we already said, is really powerful to help you make a longer term decision.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the longer time too, it gives you the opportunity to discover how to do different events in your life. Like I know I've heard you say with dry January, great to do it, but January there tends to be less social events. You're probably
Yeah.
not going on vacation, so it's kind of an easier month, which I mean
Hmm.
still do it if you want to do it. But I think learning how to like go on vacation or go to that wedding or whatever, that's where I think the biggest struggle is for people. So it's like
Hmm.
the 90-day
Mm-hmm.
window, you're probably going to come across a
Some
lot of
opportunities.
activities, the
Yeah. And
opportunities.
every
Yeah.
time you conquer something, even if you don't completely, feel great about how you did in an event or in an experience, every time you did it, you like build up some confidence points within yourself of, that might have not been my best A game, but I did it. I went to this wedding alcohol free. I went on a vacation alcohol free. I went to, whatever it was, and I didn't drink. And the past version of me would have thought I needed alcohol for that. And this version of me did it without it. And that is really going to bolster up your confidence. And the more of that you do, exactly, Renee, that you're going to get just this new sense of self-esteem and empowerment that you didn't have before.
I love
Yeah,
that idea. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, something I've been kind of experimenting with. So again, being in Vegas, alcohol, it's just like it's everywhere. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And so when I would go out, I'd be like, I can have one drink and that's it. But then I started to have some weeks or months where I'm like, oh, like people are in town or visiting or at conferences. It was like, okay, the one drink rule doesn't really fit anymore. And so now I'm just like, okay, going out to a really cool restaurant and not getting a drink. But recently, I had a friend visiting. We had one night together and we went to this place and it's ladies' night. So I'm with my
Mm.
husband and a guy friend, and it's ladies' night, and the server's like, "Come on, it's dollar tequila shots, ladies' night." And I'm like, "No, I'm
Oh,
not drinking. I'm not drinking."
no.
And my friend is like, "Come on, I see you once every 2 years. Come on and drink." And then ladies' night, this guy, I swear, the server came back to me 5 times about ladies' night. I did not drink, and the next morning I was like, wow, you're right. Like you feel empowered. You're like, that was so
Hmm.
stupid. And I feel so much better that I didn't give in to any of these peer pressuring people.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
and
proud of you
also
too.
me
That's awesome.
too. Also, the dollar tequila probably was not the prime
Oh,
tequila that was gonna make you feel very good
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. Yeah.
no,
And
you're like
Uh-uh.
only
shots.
top shelf.
Mm-mm, definitely not.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves, like at a restaurant or a bar, if there's a mistake and they're like, we'll make it up to you by bringing you a free shot or a free dessert. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't want either.
Yeah,
Just like
no.
How about a free
fix the
steak?
mistake. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
want a free steak or a free side of veggies. I know that sounds so lame, but I'm like, that's what I
That's what
want.
I
Yeah.
want too. Like my
Yeah.
preferences have changed so much because I know what it's like to feel good. And do I
Yeah.
still have a chocolate cake? Yeah, I do. And that's like I pick my vices and alcohol just isn't one anymore. And that feels good to me. And I just want to keep feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Feeling
love
good.
that. I feel like
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to get my clients like to get addicted to feeling good, right? It's not always
Yes.
easy, like you said in the beginning. It's not easy. You got to put in the work and the time. But then once you know on the other side how good it feels,
Hmm.
sort of like you don't even think about the rest.
Exactly. Yeah. And everything falls into place. It feels so much easier to have healthy habits when you have just that foundation that's setting you up for success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda,
Yeah.
you're amazing. Is there anything in this conversation you think that we have missed out on? Something else that you want to share? Anything coming to mind?
I mean, I think that there are, if you are, I don't approach, sobriety from a science perspective. And if you're someone who needs, a little more empirical proof and data, there are so many great, podcasts and articles out there that go into more depth of the science. And I'm happy to share some links with you gals if that would be helpful to kind of go into different articles and studies that really do break down that there is no great amount of alcohol to put into your body. And I don't like to demonize it as a substance, but I think it's good to empower yourself with the data versus um, kind of going off of old Cosmo articles that say that there's antioxidants in wine and then therefore it's good to drink. Like,
Cosmo.
yeah, I think that we're kind of like operating off of an old paradigm and you deserve to do the due diligence to read some of the more up-to-date data that's really a little more realistic about the topic than getting your information directly only from me or only from whomever else. Like take some time to dive into the research and really see what it is you're putting in your body. I think that would be a really wise recommendation for the types of people who listen to your show.
Yeah.
Mm.
I love the
Yeah.
Cosmo
Great
ref
tip.
one.
Yes.
Gosh.
I
And
mean, we all
two,
believe that.
oh my gosh, I lived for that magazine.
Hmm.
Um, do you ever share the Professor Nut graphic? Do you know what I'm talking about? The one where it maps like how toxic alcohol is compared to all the other substances?
Oh
Do you
my
know
gosh, I
that
need to
one?
go find that one. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's mind blowing. Like the fact that this stuff is legal compared to all the other substances. It's like alcohol, heroin,
Meth,
meth at the
Uh-huh.
top, and then all these other things that we deem so scary. It's like this stuff
cannabis,
is
MDMA.
poison. There
Yeah.
is no way around it. But yes, I
Yeah.
think there's if you anything you want to share that we can put in the show notes, I think that's
Yeah,
helpful.
for
And
sure.
I would recommend people Google, I'm sure you could Google this. Google Dr. Amen brain
Hmm.
scan with alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
you see
pretty
your brain.
profound.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's just your brain. That's just one organ of what's being impacted from alcohol, but that's
Yeah.
terrifying. So,
Yeah, it
Mhm.
is. It
Yeah.
is. And it doesn't take that much to do the damage, but luckily most of the damage can be undone if you're diligent about it.
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Awesome.
great. Thanks, Amanda. So yeah, we have lots of resources. We'll put that in the show notes for everybody. You can scroll down and find that. And then, yeah, and Amanda, if you think of anything else you want us to pop in there, let us know.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely check out Amanda's book, podcast. I love your little podcast episodes. Like they're like quick and easy. People can just jump in and it's fun to listen to. So
Yeah,
definitely
thank
check that out.
you. Amazing. Thank you, ladies, so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time today and your conversation.
Yes, we just have one more question for you.
Yeah.
If you could give our audience, I don't know, I did two, just one.
From me too.
If you have one piece of advice, something that our audience can start doing today to optimize their health and lifestyle, what would you say?
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm going to say take a break from alcohol, but I want to dive deeper and say if it is something that you are curious about and you haven't committed to a full-fledged breakup with it and just really seeing what that's like, you owe it to yourself to do that. You owe it to yourself to answer the question. And I know that for so long I was curious and I would just take breaks or take short breaks and try to moderate. And if I would have kept doing that, I always would have wondered how good it could be on the other side. And if you're in that place of wondering what that might be like for you, I really want to encourage you to try out the 90-day break and just see what happens from there. It's low stakes. You'll never regret not drinking for 90 days. And I think that you can learn a lot about yourself in that time frame.
Mm. And so other than your 21-day challenge, you have a group experience. Is that something that's always going on
Yeah,
that people can?
I do. Yeah. Thank you for asking. I have an evergreen group program called Awaken Without Alcohol. And we really take a spiritually grounded perspective in how we can wake up to ourselves, our potential, and our authenticity by breaking up with alcohol. So it's more than just a sobriety course. It's really about tuning in to your life's purpose and following that path. And I think that is what being alcohol free opened up for me. And I really just want to share that with other women who sense that they have more to give beyond their drinking persona.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
Thank
Always
you.
helpful to be in community. But
Yes,
thank you for all
absolutely.
of your
Yeah.
offerings for the book, the 21-day challenge. Are you taking one-on-one clients?
I am. Yeah, I do take one-on-one clients for those who just can't do the group thing because of timing or anything. And I love doing that because you do get such a more deep dive and intimate support container when you do one-on-one.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. All
Wonderful.
right.
Thank
That's
you
a
for
wrap.
hanging out with us today. This is so
Amazing.
wonderful. Finally, we did it.
Yes, we did it. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate
Yes.
it. And we'll talk soon.
All right. And thanks to everybody that tuned in. We will see you next time.